Hello, and welcome back to another Elevated Marketing Dot podcast, where the dot stands for data over time. This show is brought to you by Elevated Marketing Solutions if you are coming to us for the first time. And I am Jennifer Denny, and with me I have
Brenna Jackson. Hello.
Here we break down the complexities of marketing into actionable insights to help your business thrive. So I think we're going to continue our topic along sales. I wouldn't say this exactly lines up with sales, but there's definitely some similarities. And what we want to talk about is aligning your marketing with buying cycles. So I know everyone is always trying to shorten the buying cycle, and I'm absolutely not against that. But there is, in fact, a buying cycle.
Well, and there's different steps. I mean, it's a buying cycle, so of course there are different steps. And a lot of times maybe we want to skip past some of those, but they're all pretty important and they each play a role into the ultimate decision making of making a purchase.
Yeah, and that's just because we have goals to hit and revenue to hit. And so, we want to just go right for the sale, but you're gonna look a lot salesy. I know on the next show we're gonna go into that more, but just think about the last time you purchased something, and from the initial concept of starting to think that you might need a product or service, what did you start to do? Where did you start at?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it's good to reflect on that, especially as marketers when you're so close to everything, but looking at it from a consumer perspective because we are consumers.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
I think, sometimes people just be like, oh crap, I have a problem. And that might be their awareness stage and where they start at. But there might also be an awareness of, hey, I'm a product service company. I exist, making them aware that you even exist. And even within that awareness, like at the top, like that's two different places where people could be at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But after awareness, it likely is going to go down to consideration. So, okay, like you said earlier, crap, I have a problem. Now, consideration, what are my options to fix this?
Yeah, yeah, and we're gonna go to a variety of different places, um, and then decision. Like, okay, well now I've kind of seen like what my options are. I might have seen my options before I even talked to someone. This might be like I've already talked to several people, so I'm making like decisions like that could happen as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then after that buying decision is made, then there's this retention and advocacy. So, was that purchase worth it? Would I purchase again, or would I recommend a friend to purchase the same thing?
Yep, yep. And that's some people have a one and done product, and some people have a product that they're going to continually come back. And some people, I mean, we had a client here recently where I can think of a couple where there's that retention of keeping people coming back. And we started talking about email marketing and making sure that, they're getting messages after they followed up, after they have like bought the product and service, or they were getting text messages and, everything that goes into that. So, I mean, if you can keep existing client and keep them referring you over to other people, like that's some of your best type of marketing.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree. And I especially think about, say, like doctor's offices, or even say like a fencing contractor where it's a one-time purchase, but you can keep that retention by getting referrals.
Taking care of your fence, like after the fact, and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. So, okay, so I mean, I know that might have been elementary for a lot of marketers, explaining the buying cycle, but I think, if you don't understand that there is a buying cycle to people buying things, then you need to kind of start there. And, the other things we want to talk about today, though, is so, like, what type of content is needed at different stages. Some types are used at all.
Yeah. And there's a level of effort. And when we say level, we'll be speaking in like percentage terms that goes into each of these stages.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to say that that can be broken down for each effort inside of these stages, but it's a pretty good ballpark number of where maybe you should be.
Yep. And data.
Yeah.
There's some types of marketing that is easier to know where somebody is at in the stage, and there's some marketing that's not as easy to know where someone is at, like organic social media, for instance. There's no way for us to kind of know where people are at, but email marketing is a lot easier to kind of know where people are at. So,
Yeah.
okay, so let's dive in.
Yeah.
Awareness.
Yep. Educate first, sell later. This should be about 40% of your effort.
Yeah.
The types of marketing, I mean, again, think about educating. So, what's valuable, what's useful to your customers, your prospective customers. So, a lot of times you might see some blog posts here that are answering those initial questions. Social media posts that are not selling, but they are educating. So maybe you're promoting those blog posts that you put out there.
We've mentioned before on that social media, like 80% value, 20% selling your product. So just within that one little, we've gave that data before.
Yes. And those are good metrics to remember too. The 80-20 rule.
Yes. Be useful, not salesy.
Yes.
Be useful. How can I help other people? If you help enough people get what they want, you will get what you want.
Yes. And no one wants to be sold. I mean,
everybody wants to buy, nobody wants to be sold.
Yes.
Yeah. Stop screaming, buy now. Videos and podcasts and webinars that explain, do not promote. I think that is good as well.
Yeah.
What else do you think of?
Well, I think a lot about in this first stage of awareness, you have the potential to put out really valuable content, which means that you will likely gain maybe email subscribers, maybe more followers on organic social media, which I know we've gone through that, but again, just kind of building that loyal customer base.
Yeah. I mean, we've done like in healthcare where we're helping create that content for maybe people are experiencing certain symptoms, and that's what they're starting to Google and trying to understand what those symptoms are, or even creating ads for those symptoms, and getting people to go down that path. We've done that. Like, I know there's some other industry specifics we've done too.
I think about the real estate school with the quiz that was created, and it's titled, Should I Become a Real Estate Agent? So, I mean, that's bringing the awareness, first and foremost.
Yep.
And so I think about that too.
Yep, that's a perfect example. Travel and hospitality, business, like, they start by like researching the destination, and there's maybe helpful quizzes or downloads or things that you could provide there that they're just maybe becoming aware of that area. Is that a good like area? And then there's different like types of travelers. So there's like subsections down there, like the awareness person of that is just deciding whether or not they want to go to a location, and then they're going to go down the next step and be like, okay, well, I'm more of a busy bee. So what are all the things busy bee I can do? Oh, well, no, now I'm more of a like relax. So what are all the things that I can do within that? Um, they might all still be just, awareness at that yet. They haven't quite decided to consider buying and taking that vacation. They just want to know what's available.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then something else I think we've said is, there's what type of content works here, industry specific considerations, and then there's seasonal considerations for each one of these stages. So we're still just at awareness stage. And how much of your content should be spent here?
About 40%.
40%.
Yeah.
So
that's a big chunk.
Yeah, that's a big chunk. Almost half of your time is spent in that awareness stage where you're like, they're not ready to buy yet. I'm just letting them know what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
How I can help.
Yeah. What about with like seasonal? Like, do we kind of think maybe this is more of the off season, if you will, in terms of getting that awareness up and increasing that engagement? So then when it's buying season, you've kind of got this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's just seasonal considerations for just different times a year. People might be prone more to buy your product or service.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to have like these campaigns that are set up for those particular times of the year. But then you have to layer that on top of, let's say that I'm just going to go back to the travel, that it's could be 12 to 18 months to make a decision for a Europe trip. Well, if it's 12 to 18 months for that decision, but then you layer it on top with a lot of people make the decision in January, and maybe you just started working on their marketing, like, that's a lot just kind of happening all there. But the timing stuff, I would say, is more important, and so your percentages might change there. So I wouldn't say the percentages are hardcore, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's definitely not a handshake at a networking event and asking them for a business card if they're ready to buy.
So, coming from experience.
Just saying.
Well, I mean, what's coming after that awareness stage, though, is maybe going into the next stage, and that's consideration. And so if you're just handed a business card, are you really considering?
No. No. And gosh, I mean, this one is 30% of the time. You think you got somebody like, somewhat like interested, and you're like thinking, okay, they're ready to buy. Like, that's still 30% where they're considering. Like, so that's 70% of like, if you look at this from like, all of this is happening online, like 40% is awareness, 30% in consideration. That if you have a salesperson in this, like, it's 70% is already done before it gets to the salesperson. I'm getting ahead of myself for next week's show. So, okay, keep going.
Well, this is where you start to kind of make your case and tell people why you were the right choice, but it's still without being super pushy. You still are trying to win them over. So there's different pieces of content here that works in this stage, and a lot of that can be comparison guides. So maybe you're comparing yourself to a competitor.
Mm-hmm.
We love to see those graphics. At least I do. I think that's a really good demonstration.
Oh, and I'm terrible somewhat at graphics. I'm the one that's like, get the words in there.
Case studies and testimonials, that is also pretty good proof, I would say, in this stage. I honestly would split those up. I think each of them are impactful
Yep.
on their own.
Yeah.
There's email nurture sequences. So again, hopefully you're building your list in that awareness stage. And so now you've got these contacts to nurture inside of your email marketing. And that's really important. We've talked about this before. That's the only list of people that you truly own. So you definitely want to talk to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
We talked about a little bit with webinars last stage too, but webinars and consultations are important here. This is where you can really get in front of these prospective customers and, again, just make your case without being too pushy.
Yep. Yep. And retargeting ads, staying in front of people who visited your site before but haven't converted. So you can hear where we're mentioning the same marketing, at different stages. And so it's like you got this matrix of all the different types of marketing and all the people at the different buying cycles, layered on the calendar year by the type of business that you are. And so there's just be this matrix of how to, go forward with your content.
Yeah. Well, and the type of marketing may stay the same, but it's the objective. That's that changing variable.
Yeah. And another layer here is buyer personas.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to consideration, there are different people who are considering your product, and how you speak to one versus how you speak to another is going to be different. So you really want to first start with your most likely to buy buyer persona, and then later kind of layer on different buyer personas.
Yeah. When you brought that up, it made me think of these different stages, and I think we see a lot of times people are skipping the awareness stage and they're going straight to consideration in terms of businesses. Like they're trying to make their case well before they hit that awareness stage.
Yeah, and you might catch some people, but if you look in a bigger, broad too, 3% of the market is ready to buy your product right now. 3%. So there's that other 97% that you could affect if you were doing the awareness and consideration. So 70% of that effort, then it's just going to make that decision that much easier, because they're fully aware. They need to see your brand at least 8 times before they even recognize you. It is a lot, and I know we don't want to realize all of this because it's just work, and nobody wants to necessarily always do all that work. But it's the small steps, like layering one brick at a time, that will get you to the overall. It's just coming back strategically and thinking through it.
Yeah. I think a lot about with maybe an eye doctor, and maybe during that awareness stage, you've got prospective patients who are viewing your blog posts and your social media posts, and they find that content valuable. And so now when they're in the stage of consideration, if they've seen you before, they're familiar with you, you don't necessarily, it makes making your case that you don't have to do it as hard.
Yeah.
Because you've kind of started to make your case in that awareness stage without knowing it, because you're providing value.
Yeah. Yeah. We haven't mentioned it yet, but I just, oddly, I'm going to mention it now, is looking at all this being laid out on your website in that same fashion. I've always said that every page should look like a landing page, and it should logically take you to the next step. And so yeah, that will bring people down the buying cycle.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially tying everything back to the website.
Yeah. Okay, bring us home.
Okay. They're aware, they're considering. Are they ready to make a decision at stage 3?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hope
Make it
so.
stupidly easy to buy.
Yeah.
20% of your efforts. Like,
Yep.
this is where everybody wants to be, you know, but is it very easy? We've implemented with clients like live chats and FAQs, which are also going to be very good with large language models,
Yep.
social proof everywhere, reviews, testimonials, case studies, which you had before. Limited time offers, maybe. We did a show on offers, and people can tell if you fake it, so don't do that. Uh,
Yeah.
Compelling call to actions. You and I talked about this one time. Not like your CTA needs to be not, get started now, or like not so obvious.
Yeah.
Like really hit for that emotion.
Yeah. Well, and you don't want to make it too complicated either. Like if you try to get too creative with it, then they're not going to know what to do.
Yeah.
So, but I agree. I think it's a little bland these days to learn more, get a free quote.
Yeah. Pulling in seasonal, so like certain types of businesses might have seasonality where the decision will be clearer at that time of year. We are in the beginning of the year, and a lot of people do tend to think about their health a lot more at the beginning of the year, plus everybody's sick, and so you just start thinking about it more. So you might have to ramp up efforts at that time of year because of that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, the lost soul that everybody forgets, step 4.
Retention and advocacy. You want to keep them engaged.
Yeah. Keep them coming back. 10% of your efforts. I think you just said that. It's a repeat customer is cheaper than finding a new one.
Mm-hmm. And to go off that too, word of mouth customers who are coming from current or past customers of yours. And when I think about this stage, I think a lot about maybe an emergency service, so maybe HVAC, where they may not have all the time in the world to go through all stages, and they're kind of skipping around to get to that buying decision. And so if you're providing a great service at that time, then this stage is that much more important to keep them on and to keep them advocating for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they maybe are on a maintenance program and following up and making sure that they know that maintenance is coming up. Maybe you are in a doctor's office and they normally see you once a year. What is the email sequence that they come back and see you? Maybe you're in the travel industry and they have already made that travel, but they want to think about coming back again. So what is the content of did you miss? What did you miss? So you've got all these people that have already purchased, like, how was your trip? What did you enjoy? Like, and then they just feel like special because they're like, oh, you
Yeah.
remember me.
For sure. This is where you can really personalize your communications with this group because they've been with you before. They've gone through your buying cycle.
Yeah.
And people like to hear, hey, Brenna, how was your visit? It's the little things. It truly is.
That's a feedback loop for did it go well? What can we do better?
Yeah.
Maybe you're creating like a referral program. This is 10% of your efforts, so I think it is there. So
Well, I think one more note that I have with this, what you gather from this stage it's a cycle. So it's all going back around. What you gather here, you can use in all of these other cycles, especially awareness and consideration.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So we've got awareness is 40%, considerations 30%, decisions 20%, and retention is 10% of your total efforts. Many types of marketing that can be used at different types, right?
Oh, for sure.
Adjusting for buying cycles and seasonality, adjusting by your industry. Did we miss anything?
Again, you mentioned it, but those buyer personas, knowing who you're talking to, it's always going to be important. We're never going to get away from that.
All right, my sinuses are coming in. All right. Well, thank you for listening to today's show. If you want to learn more about us, you can go to elevatedmarketing.solutions. And whether or not you're on the knowledge page or the socials page, you can certainly sign up for our email newsletter. Or you can go to Jennifer Denny on LinkedIn. And we're live every Wednesday. Anything that I missed, Brenna?
I don't think so. You might be at your awareness right now because you just found us. Now maybe you're considering following us on other platforms.
Nice tie. All right. Take care, everybody.